published on the Ofsted website. Meanwhile, the school is grieving for its head teacher. Aruna Iyengar, BBC News.
Time now for a roundup of business news with Jonathan Josephs. Hello.
Hi, Martine. Hello there, everybody. The big question, are the jitters for the global banking sector over? That's what many anxious investors are continuing to ask after the weekend rescue of Credit Suisse by UBS. In the last couple of hours, the US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has been offering more reassurances that the banking system is stable. In a speech to bankers in Washington, she said the US government is prepared to help more banks if that's what's needed.
The government's recent actions have demonstrated our resolute commitment to take the necessary steps to ensure that depositors' savings and the banking system remain safe. Our intervention was necessary to protect the broader U.S. banking system. And similar actions could be warranted if smaller institutions suffered deposit runs that pose the risk of contagion.
Janet Yellen there. Well, let's take a look at the latest on the financial markets, and we can see here that in the United States, the S&P and the Dow both in positive territory. The FTSE and the DAX in London and Frankfurt also on the rise. Some of those sell-offs are being reversed today because traders are feeling perhaps a bit more confident. And if we look on, we can see some of the banking shares that are traded in London, where markets closed not long ago, and HSBC, Standard Chartered, NatWest and Barclays all reversing yesterday's losses. So are things looking more optimistic, all those reassurances from policymakers? Well, let's speak to our North America business correspondent, Samira Hussein, joins us from New York. Samira, Janet Yellen talking there, trying to reassure investors. Is it working, given that in the US, we've also got more problems with First Republic Bank?
Indeed. So if you look at what the comments she made were, and you actually ran a bit of that clip, where she said that they are willing to put more, offer more support for those banks that are running into trouble. Remember, that was always the big question. We saw what regulators did for the Silicon Valley Bank 2 weeks ago and for Signature Bank. And the question was, well, if there are other smaller regional banks that we see that are getting under pressure, will the federal authorities be willing to step in and to help them? And that is certainly the case. And those words really led to a lot of investor confidence when it comes to some of those regional banks like First Republic. Remember, their share price had tanked over the last 2 weeks as investors worried that they were going to be the next to potentially require help. Between that and the fact that we're hearing reports of Jamie Dimon, the head of JP Morgan Bank, really trying to support the bank as well, that has led to some investor confidence. And we saw that their shares are up now by about 20%.
Investor confidence, the two key words there, I guess. And some of them are also looking ahead to tomorrow and when Federal Reserve decision, the US Central Bank making its next decision on interest rates, and perhaps some expectations that it might not be such a straightforward decision and that they might not increase interest rates. Or what's likely to happen?
The Federal Reserve and the policymakers there are in a difficult position. On the one hand, they need to fight inflation, and raising interest rates is the way that they have been doing that. But then on the other hand, you see that, the banking sector has been embroiled in a crisis, that these higher interest rates have put them into difficulties when it comes to liquidity. So should the Federal Reserve continue raising interest rates, or should it put a pause on raising interest rates because of the knock-on effect it's happening on other sectors of the economy? That is certainly a question I can't answer, but it is going to be up to Chairman Powell and his colleagues. The consensus so far right now is that perhaps there's going to be a 0.25% interest rate rise at the meeting, and then we'll see a pause. But I think we'll get more detail tomorrow when they release that decision.
And I'm sure we'll get to speak to you again about that, Samira. Thanks so much for bringing us up to date on the latest in the global banking industry. Now, let's have a change of tune and talk about the music industry. Despite the delicate state of the global economy, a growing number of us are splashing out on streaming services, it seems. It's one of the big drivers of a 9% growth in how much we're spending on music. According to the industry body, the IFPI, worldwide sales hit $26.2 billion last year. Universal Music Group is one of the biggest record labels out there, and its boss for Africa, Middle East and Asia is Adam Granit. Earlier, I asked him how much physical music sales, such as vinyl, were also helping in the industry's success.
Well, streaming is certainly the biggest component. It's 67% of our revenues, but yes, physical as a category grew as well in 2022, and vinyl is the biggest component of the physical piece, up over 17%.
And how much of this, though, is this resurgence for vinyl is helping the industry more generally? Because it's obviously something different when people can touch a well-designed physical product, and when you have whether it's a vinyl collection or a CD collection, you can touch it and you can hold it. I mean, Metallica, I heard, are even buying their own factory to print vinyl because there is such a demand out there for that.
Yes, indeed. The demand is extraordinary. I think it shows the value of music and the value of collectibles. And also, I think with vinyl, it's very important for consumers who want to display their collection as well.
And Adam, what impact is the end of the pandemic having on the music industry? How much is it helping the fact that people are now able to go out to concerts again, and they're able, and recording artists are able to meet with their colleagues, they're able to meet with their record label people, they're able to meet with their collaborative partners? How much is that helping to put new music out there, and that's pushing sales?
Right. It's certainly helping the artist development process when you can connect a song or a couple songs with an artist. You can build that direct artist-to-fan connection. It's very, very powerful. And I think as well, it also helps our music travel around the world better. When artists can travel and be in various markets, it really helps seal that connection.
Adam Granit from Universal Music there. Just time for a couple of other stories. The Dutch government is defending itself in court today over plans to try and cut the number of flights at Amsterdam's Schiphol airport by more than 10%. The new flight cap, which would come into force in November, aims to reduce noise pollution and carbon emissions. 8 airlines have joined forces to prevent the cap being imposed. The carriers are concerned that the threatened capacity reduction at one of the world's busiest airports would have major implications for the European Union's single aviation market. A salvage team on the coast of the Philippines has located a sunken tanker whose cargo of oil has been leaking into the sea for the last 3 weeks. The Princess Empress was discovered 400 meters below the surface, and experts hope they can now clean it up.